Connor Davies, we are on. What is the message?
I don't know, really. I mean, changes from day to day, doesn't it? But yeah, no, it's a good day to be here, and hopefully have a good chat as well.
Absolutely. Now, just give the audience a little bit of a forewarning. An Irishman and a Welshman have sat down on the podcast. We may need some subtitles. Tell us a little bit about this. You're from the sticks, sort of near the valleys. You ended up here in the north of England. Tell us how rugby league came into your life, because it wasn't always taekwondo, am I right?
No, it was kickboxing early on.
Kickboxing, yeah.
That feels like a different life, to be honest. But yeah, so first of all, just kickboxing. Did that when I was sort of probably from like the age of 9 to about 15. And then it was rugby union in between that as well.
Typical in Wales.
Yeah, I mean, as a Welsh person, it's a bit strange if you're not playing rugby union. And then started league at probably about 15 when I was in school. And then just carried on from there. And it's weird how things happen. And I've ended up in Brighouse for the business and living in Halifax, which is almost like a home from home now.
Can't see yourself back in Wales anytime soon. Not with this brick and mortar business here.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, maybe if you franchise, maybe, I don't know. But no, it is always nice to go home. But yeah, it is sort of like a bit of a base for me up here now. I played at Halifax for probably, this is the second year now, but I've been here before and lived here for probably 5-6 years total. So yeah, no, I like it around here. Made some good mates, some colleagues. And yeah, no, it's just sort of nice and settled now.
Colleagues, business partners, the whole shebang comes full. It sort of comes all together when you come up here. And as a man from like you said, you're not exactly from the north of England. Rugby league wasn't your background. You grew up playing a bit of rugby union. You grew up in martial arts. Do you know what I mean? You weren't exactly it wasn't destined to become a rugby league player. How does one, from where you're from, what's the town you're from called?
Cumhinvech. So it's pretty hard to say.
I won't even try.
I don't often say it up here. I just say Swansea because it's easier. And people, still struggle with that. But yeah, South Wales, sort of southwest Wales, on the way into being in the sticks. It's not quite the valleys, but yeah, it's about 4.5 hours from here. So yeah, quite a fair distance.
And how does one become a rugby league player? What does that journey look like when you go from being from South Wales to becoming a rugby league player, coming up to the north of England? How does one go on that journey? Tell us a little bit about that, and how that's shaped your life essentially. Because now we're sat here in Heist HQ in your current business. You said Halifax is your home away from home now. Do you know what I mean? How does that shape your life up, and what is that like for you?
To be fair, I don't really think back too much really. But looking back, it's a bit hectic. I mean, you don't really I don't think I ever made a conscious decision of I'm going to move away, or this is going to happen, or this is going to happen. I'm going to play rugby league instead of rugby union or whatever. But in school, I was playing rugby union with sort of a bit of a successful rugby union team. So we'd win national cups and things. And my teacher there had played a bit of rugby league, entered us into a schools competition. It's called Champion Schools. We ended up winning the Welsh version of it. Then you go into a British competition. We ended up getting to the final of that. We didn't really know what we were doing, to be honest. We were just rugby union players playing rugby league. But we ended up getting to the final playing at Wood Grange. And they had just had a Wakey scholarship team. So we got pumped in the final, but played in Odsal.
Savage.
Yeah. And then from there, just sort of got a few offers for trials and things. And then got almost told, I'll go to university, see how it goes. And then, yeah, I don't know, that sort of just happened then. I was still playing rugby union at the time. But then as that goes, bit vertically challenged, so I was playing back row. They said, do you want to play hooker? I didn't really fancy the scrummaging side of things, so yeah, just sort of a bit of a natural progression, but it was never really a conscious decision. I've got a twin brother as well, Kurt, who we both probably moved away, and it probably made it a bit easier. Yeah. Sort of moving with someone, so it's not as sort of daunting. But then, yeah, when we just sort of made the moved away, started playing rugby league, and then sort of that's how it's been then. And things just progressed from there. So played in Leeds Beckett for a while, then came to Halifax, played in the reserves, and then from there signed first team, and then that's where it started really. And
that's where the journey began. Became a Welsh international then off the back of that. I think you were at Leeds with me mate James Mulvaney at the time, weren't you?
Yeah, Leeds Beckett. Yeah, he was.
You won everything then, didn't you? It was you and Northumbria, wasn't it?
Yeah. So it was only sort of ever two teams really that was sort of competitive, and at the time, looking back now, there's quite a few players who played professionally. So it was a pretty good standard, and obviously you have all the university sort of facilities to go at and the gyms and things. So yeah, no, it was sort of a good move really. I wasn't really something that we thought too much about. That's probably how I live my life. It's a little bit on the edge. dancing on ice a little bit, but it sort of worked out well, really.
No real thinking going into it, just letting the winds take you where it comes. What did you study?
So I started sports science, then realised, that's not for me. So it was a bit too hard. I didn't really ever read then. Like I didn't read a book until I finished university. That probably sums me up a little bit. It's a little bit backwards. But and then I moved into sports business management. I did that as an undergrad and then ended up doing a master's, basically because I didn't want to work.
That's a trick, isn't it? If you stay in uni long enough, you can play rugby and you don't have to work.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was quite a chill life. And it probably took me about 6 years to finish in the end. But yeah, I was happy enough to get finished. Get
to play for Wales university team and then obviously Wales international team and all of that. And what was the first book you read after university?
To be fair, it was probably when I moved to France. So after university, I was playing for Halifax. And when that came to an end, I ended up moving to France to play rugby. Me and Kurt both thought, south of France, how good, we're going to be living by the beach. But then didn't really do too much research into it, consistent theme. And then we ended up moving like an hour and a half away from Toulouse, like inland. Like we were away from everything. Like we were the furthest team away from anywhere. It was middle of France, like small little village. No one spoke a lick of English. Like they had no chance of understanding me anyway, and my attempt at French. So I just bought a book on the plane on the way out, and it was a Malcolm Gladwell book. And we were speaking about Malcolm Gladwell's book this morning, and then I think I've read all 8 now. And then from there, I just started reading, and then so I think Outliers might have been the first one I might have read.
What a book! Yeah,
and just from there, I don't know. It's been a bit of a blessing, like having that time over in France, because we were just playing rugby. So in the days I've always been a bit of like a creature of routine. So I like having set things in place. Otherwise, I'd probably just go a bit stir crazy. But and I'd always block out my morning to read and things, and I just sort of got more into it. And then just sort of gone from there, really.
It's funny that because like Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers as a book, I think that was like the book that like shaped the direction of my life. Do you know what I mean? And then you've read it, and you said like that's been a knock-on effect for you as well. Because like that, if people haven't read that book, they need to read it. I think it's like a pinnacle moment reading that book. But so you're out in France, living the life. You're with your twin brother. Obviously, it's good to have someone who's so similar to you, I suppose. Like in your corner, like he's about doing the same kind of thing. You know, he's on the same sort of mission. That helps a lot, doesn't it? Having someone like that. Like, what's it been like having a twin, or is it something that like you're always being compared to? You know, how do you find that? I'm an only child, you see, so like. That I always dreamed of having a brother. I thought that'd be sick. But having a twin brother, exact same age, exact same, I'd imagine, similar personalities, similar, play on the same team the whole life. What's that like? Yeah, no, we are pretty close, to be fair. We've always done the same thing. Like we went to, obviously, same school, we had same friendship groups, same sports. Like I say, always compared to each other. Same teams, moved away to uni, lived in the same houses. Moved together after university, played at the same teams up until just about last year, really. So everything we've always done, like the kickboxing thing, we always did that together. We're always competing, sometimes fighting against each other. And it is good. Like looking back, it's a blessing because you've always really got a bit of accountability. Yeah. And it's like we'll pick each other up on things. Like I always do it now as a bit of a joke. Like if I walk through the house and say if there was like a packet of crisps there, which we wouldn't, like, I wouldn't eat that anyway, because I'm a bit of like an extremist when it comes to that, like my diet and things. But if I did pick one up and walk through the house, he'd be like, "What are you doing?" Like, he'd be into it, would he?
Yeah, no, anything like that. Or maybe if I'm like just being negative, he'd be like, "What are you doing?" Like, it's just that accountability. And I think looking back, it is a blessing because like you've always got that sort of voice, a voice of reason and what's best for you almost. And not maybe intentionally, but like it's just that extreme accountability. And we've always really had that. Like early days kickboxing, we'd always have a sparring partner. Like with rugby, any extras we were doing, you'd always have someone else there. Or like if you weren't doing it, being lazy, someone would pick you up. Yeah. So it's been pretty cool, really, like that. And obviously, it's never something that was conscious, but we've always sort of been on top of each other in terms of just like keeping each other accountable.
Trying to get one up on each other and that.
Yeah, and then you sort of competing as well, and like and obviously you always get compared to each other. So it's almost like always driving it. Whereas like with the Heist 21 challenge now, I think seeing the value in like people have accountability and someone there to obviously like set a bit of rules, set a bit of accountability to challenge people. There's a value in it that maybe I didn't really appreciate, but obviously it's sort of served me well, really. And I mean, it's not always a blessing, it's a curse sometimes as well. But yeah, it's been more good than bad.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there's some gems to dive into there, especially about the Heist 21 challenge, because when you create a community and accountability, so many people don't have that. And in the rugby world, in particular, when you have a twin brother who's professional at rugby as well, do you know what I mean? Like, people don't realise how important it is to have someone there to keep them accountable to what they're doing. Like, yous have had that growing up your whole life. You've been competing against each other, but so many people like haven't found that circle of trust like that we have in rugby, you have with your brother, to keep yourself accountable towards what you're trying to do. Do you know what I mean? So in that sense, like that's crazy. And tell us a little bit about that for those who don't know. Myself, yourself, all the boys at Heist and a few people from the local area have taken on the Heist 21 day challenge for January, you know, a little bit of personal development, and that sort of touches on your demeanor, your intensity with your diet and how you eat and the things that you do, because I know about you, but a lot of other people wouldn't know about like how you walk and how you go about your life with your diet and like no shit food or anything like that. So tell us a little about what made you and the boys start this challenge.
Yeah, it was probably, obviously January comes around quickly, and then you've got sort of the New Year, New Me gang and things like that. And people always have an intention to do something, but then I think quickly that subsides when obviously you get into middle of January, it's a weekend, you know, your friends are calling you to go out. And I think if you are sort of just one-man band doing that, or maybe two people, it's easy to slip. Whereas if you've got a few more people around you and you've got that sort of accountability, you've got people to answer to, you've got like, not consequences so much, like we're not
punishing anyone.
Yeah, not yet anyway. But yeah, when you've got something around you that's a bit more, there's sort of a bit of a backup and a reserve of a bit of like will, if you know what I mean. But I think obviously me speaking about like having a twin, I've always had that, and I think the value of that and being pushed into a group, and I think there's about 35 people in there, which we were surprised about. But I think it shows the appetite in terms of people wanting to instill good change and behaviour change, and maybe wanting a bit more, and especially setting good habits. And I think the 21-day challenges, so it's 21 days to create a habit. So that was the thing around it in terms of getting people to set themselves up for the year almost. And it might be something that we sustain longer term, but I think initially just getting a good group of people in who can sort of keep each other accountable and someone to answer to, and just set sort of good foundation. So I think I probably missed some of these out, but it's 3 litres of water a day, 10,000 steps, reading a book, 10 pages, and then whole foods. I feel like I'm missing another one out.
No alcohol. No
alcohol as well, yeah.
3 litres of water.
Yeah. But I think like last night, for example, I was working late here. I'd only done sort of 2,000-3,000 steps.
Seen that, yeah.
Yeah, well, sorry. And then I probably had about 3K left, and it gets to 10 o'clock at night, and I'm like, I might not do it. But then you've got 30 people in the group who are
watching you.
Yeah, and it's like that, the hand on the shoulder, and it's like, yeah, I'm going to have to get out. You can't really let it slip, do you know what I mean? It's like that little voice in the back of your head, and it's a bit stronger when you've got 35 people in a group who've done it, and people who've, again, had office jobs and done other things. And yeah, so I thought, right, I'm going to have to get out, get the coat on and get out, get stepping.
That's it.
So I think that's the value in it, really. And I think, obviously, with what we want to do here, we generally do want to help people. And I think what the service you want to provide is something that is sort of grounded in something that's positive. And if we can create a positive change to 35 people, and that can then extend to more and more people, then I think that's a good thing to do, and I think it's a good way to do business, really.
Absolutely. And that's the exciting thing about what you have going on here. And I love coming myself. I love the community that you're building, and I love like what you four lads are about, because like I just love the story of it and everything. Like none of yous had any idea essentially what yous are doing. Like yous had never opened a brick or mortar business before. None of yous have backgrounds in trades. Yous are 4 rugby players, and yous have built a recovery centre. But it's gone beyond that. It's become a wellness community, a social place for people to drink coffee, for people to sort of step away from that alcohol and go into the pub and like find another way to socialise and get that dopamine hit and do things for yourself, rather than like spend the time, in the pub or doing something that's destroying the body, you know what I mean? As good as it is, like, a bit of crack's all good, a few beers is all good, but, you know what I mean? Like, to show people, listen, like, if you want the community aspect, then you have people getting up at, 6 a.m. doing 5Ks on Mondays, you know what I mean? You have people coming here socialising, getting in a 2 degrees ice bath, like, that is something that's going to add value to the community around Brighouse and Halifax, and, mate, honestly, I love it. So, tell us a little bit about this build, because I know Keezy touched on it when we were on the pod, but, like, Use for are maniacs. Like, I love what yous have done. I love the fact yous have taken the plunge and gotten into it. And we were talking about that before the podcast, like going in and just going, if you have an idea, just doing it rather than actually thinking about it. Because once you think about it, the idea gets too big in your head and you go, nah, I won't do that. You know what I mean? Like, I've climbed out 8 mountains in my head, and I've started 27 businesses in my head, but where are they now? It's all up here. Yeah. You know what I mean? To actually action it and go, yeah, I'm gonna go for it here. That is full credit to the boys.
Yeah.
But go on, tell us a little bit about that. Like, obviously, wellness center. What has that been like, and what was the build like for you, from your perspective, even?
Yeah. So with the build, it was looking back, it's quite funny, to be honest. I've actually seen some costings that we did the other day, early doors, and they're way off.
Delusion.
Literally,
absolute delusion.
Absolute delusion. But I think. The way I live my life, I almost live in a bubble. I know that. Yeah, just walking on clouds. And like a bit of an eternal optimism that everything comes together. And that is exactly what happened here. Like, we had no idea what we were doing build-wise. Well, to be fair, one of the other boys, he did a Sparky course for 2 years, but he's not put a light bulb in yet. And then the rest of us, yeah. But I'm not practical whatsoever. Like, yeah, you wouldn't trust me doing anything. I can't put a car tire on, like, nothing, like literally nothing. So to think that we could turn a vacant building into something that is as it looks now in 16 weeks it's a bit of a joke, really. But I think if you go looking for something, you actually find the answers. And the way that it came about was just, it's quite funny, really. Like, some of the buildings that we looked up for this one, and we turned up and we were like, this is the one. And they were absolutely ruined. And it's fortunate that by hook or by crook, we end up in this one. And how the work came together, like Keezy knew someone or Zach knew someone. And I think that is sort of the best sort of learning I've had from this, is that if you actually go looking for it, you actually give it a go, put yourself on the line, that you actually find some sort of answers to it. And it just came together. And I mean, like, I took a picture, actually, I put in the group chat the other day, where we're sort of maybe halfway through the build and we're like, shit, this is going to cost a lot more money than what we thought. And that when that sort of reality hits and you're like, this might not happen. And the first thing I thought was, I'll take a picture.
That's it. Yeah. That's it. The memory's there, you know what I mean?
As standard, Keezy was stressing, because he does all our stressing on our behalf, and Kurt, you could see his face was like, oh shit. But yeah, it just happened, and it came together. I think sort of the universe, the big man was smiling down on us, and it just all came together, and it's how it's ended up now. And I don't think really that we'd have got here without sort of all of us sort of chipping in. And it's funny how you just find a way almost, which we end up doing. But the build itself, like, yeah, we were clueless. Keezy's cousins came in, they did a lot of the early build, and then after that, then we were just sort of filling blanks. And then Keezy's father, the man that can, he just made it happen, really. He just came in and started just putting things in place which we had no sort of experience of doing, and he just got it over the line. And yeah, no, we're just happy with it, how it's turned out, really, more than anything.
And it's absolutely savage. And the biggest piece from that is, if you don't ask, you don't get. And if you don't take action, nothing happens. Do you know what I mean? Nothing happens from staying still. And that's what I always say to people. In life, if you start walking in a direction, you can always pivot, but you have to be moving. You have to put one foot in front of the other. Do you know what I mean? And that's basically your journey so far. If you weren't willing to take the plunge and move up north and go to university and pivot again on the course that you're doing and pivot again and go to France for a bit, you don't get to where you are. You don't open this business. You don't start something that could snowball into something else, because it's only early doors still. It's only open, 3 months now?
Yeah, well, no, not even 3 months.
3 months,
yeah, not even 3 months, 8 weeks, I think. But it's probably 2 conversations, really, that how this came about. So early on, I think we just played in the World Cup, me and Kurt, and then we'd gone home for the off-season. Now we came back, and then we were just in the sauna, surprisingly enough, in the sauna. And we were just sort of speaking about to that sort of accountability. And the hand on the shoulder, and we were sort of both reading, and he'd sort of been reading this book, and then he sort of just put a question on my toes, and I was a bit like, actually, yeah, and it made me realise a bit. And he just sort of said, like, are we actually doing what we want to do? Because I've always sort of been aspirational in terms of things I want to achieve and things that I want to happen in my life. Like, I don't want to be that old person that's popping balls because I'm resentful of what opportunities I didn't take. And I think as a Denzel Washington saying, or maybe it might be from someone else, but he says it in a speech, and it's like, I don't want to be on your deathbed surrounded by the ghosts that potentially didn't use, the things you didn't act on, and the ideas that you never did. And I just thought, like, that's pretty powerful. But then really I was just sort of in just a little bit of flight mode, just winging it, just seeing what happened. And really, if I looked at my life objectively from a third person, it wasn't really how I wanted it to be. Like, I wanted to have independence. I was working in an office. That really isn't sort of my personality, but I was just doing it just for the sake of convenience, money, which I think we all, like, obviously you sort of need to do with the reality of things. You need to pay bills, but actually I wasn't really taking charge of it. And Kurt just sort of just said, oh, actually, like, what are we doing? Are we in the right place for rugby? Probably wasn't at the time. And sort of personally, as in with like business or things we had going for us, not really. And I think that was like a bit of a bit of a realization. And then from there, then sort of start taking steps towards it. And this sort of idea came about. Obviously, I've always looked into sports and sort of recovery. I've always been that way out in terms of looking after the body. So then, yeah, this sort of idea came about then. And then it was after a gym session with Keezy and Zach. We'd been on the rower. I think it was a tough session. It was like 10 times 300 meters. So a complete flogging. And then we'd saunaed, then gone for a coffee. And I'd sort of mentioned that conversation. They were like, yeah, no, we actually feel the same. And I think it's surprising with like the way you feel or like the way you think. Actually, it's surprising how many other people think like that at times. Because like with our House 21 group, for example, I think a lot of people actually want to do more, but then have they got the opportunity? Have they got like people who are there to sort of keep them accountable, or actually just a bit of a community?
Yeah.
And I think we were all like, yeah, feel the same. We actually want to do something, or sort of just wish-washing jobs, or do you know what I mean, just doing something that we didn't really want to do. And
that wasn't serving you, that wasn't giving you that passion, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, and wasn't really something that was aligned with what we actually wanted to do with our lives. So then that's when we started looking. I messaged Kurt after that, and he was like, yeah, I'm in. And we've always been a bit like, consequences come later, we'll just see what happens.
I love that.
Yeah, and that's how this sort of came about at first. And we just threw ourselves into it.
The plunge.
Yeah.
Took the plunge, literally. The cold plunge. Took the plunge. And then,
absolutely.
And then this comes to life and comes to fruition. And you look around probably and you go, like when you have those 6 a.m. run clubs and you have the House 21 community, you probably go, this is something building. And it's more of a reflection of you as a person, isn't it? Like when what you do away from rugby, when your job is serving you and you feel passionate about it, it reflects in everything you do. Do you know what I mean? And how you live your life, you feel better about yourself. Like, I can't imagine you in an office. Do you know what I mean? I can't imagine you. I can't imagine myself in an office. Like, I think that's my idea of hell. Like, and like some people thrive in it. They love the office environment. I can't imagine working in an office. And that's just me personally. Like you said, I love freedom. I love flexibility, and I love being able to, like, I suppose, have the time to sort of spend a bit of time with my recovery and my diet and go for a sauna and do an ice bath and do a bit of stretching or whatever like that. And I'm sure you're the same like that, in terms of you want that bit of time to sort of spend time on your body to do what you want to do to progress in rugby, or to make sure that you're outputting to the best of your ability. Yeah.
No, I think it's funny looking back, and I think really we only sort of learn in reverse. There's a saying that the ironic tragedy of life is that it's understood backwards but lived forward. And like, that was it really. I was sort of just on flight mode. And it's funny how behaviour becomes conditioned in a way. And at first it was just like, I moved to Leeds. So basically we finished the World Cup. I hadn't signed for a team. It was late on. And then I ended up signing for Dewsbury, went to live in Leeds. Kurt moved to Newcastle. And then, so I was just living on my own. So I just thought, look, I'll get a job, work rugby. And it's just that convenience, but quickly that seeps into other behaviours, and you just sort of almost become conditioned to the way of you just living. And quickly I just found myself living a life that was like, actually, shit, this is me. But then it becomes convenient because like the money's good, It was sort of just comfy. I was going back and forth. It worked. Do you know what I mean? But then it's almost that sedation. Then it's like, actually, it's all right. It's sort of comfortable complacency.
Absolutely.
Which I sort of quickly fell into. And it's funny because I've never been that way.
Yeah.
Like, I've always been like, am I doing what I want to do? Like, sorry.
Reflecting on yourself.
Yeah, I was going to swear then.
I don't care.
I was just thinking, fuck that. Sorry, monkey. That's grandmother in Welsh. I've always been sort of like, fuck that. Like, I'm not doing that. Why would I bother? But then it's funny because I sort of catch myself. And I was like, shit, I'm not doing what I want to do. And like, I'd be in the office and I'd be like, almost like burning up, like, shit, what am I doing with my time?
Yeah.
But then it gets comfy. And then you get the paycheck at the end of the month and it's like, it's
You're
all
just
right.
cruising. You're using cruise control, aren't you? And I feel like it's so easy to get caught in that. I've been caught in that before. You can get caught in it with relationships, with what you're doing, with job, with rugby. It's not just like one asset of your life. Like all of these things, like complacency seeps into it. Because when you're in that mode and like everything's comfy, do you know what I mean? Like you're just cruising. You know, you're not really testing yourself. You're not really putting yourself out there so much. Like it is easy, but if you don't catch yourself in the fall, 10 years go by. Just like that, and then you go like you become overweight. You haven't actually achieved what you want to achieve, or you haven't aspired towards your dreams. You just sort of gone through the motions, and life comes like a blur, doesn't it? When you're in that mode of like of complacency, of going through the motions, it goes by like that, and you go, "Where's those 6 months by? Have I improved as a person?" So like self-reflection and like taking a step back, like you said, 2020 hindsight. You know what I mean? Taking a step back and actually going, like, what am I doing? Is this day the day that I want? Am I inputting in what I want to do to better myself? Or even if you're not trying to better yourself, am I trying to move the needle towards a goal or towards something that I genuinely believe, like from my heart, is something that I want to do? Even if you're not quite there yet. Because like you said, like financially, you may not always be in a position to quit your job and start a business. People like may not be in a position to do that. Like we're lucky, I suppose, that we have some sort of form of earning power from rugby. Do you know what I mean? But like, are you moving the needle towards something that you feel like will actually, I don't know, uplift your soul? Like it will actually give you satisfaction in your life. Do you know what I mean? And they talk about it. Do you ever hear of ikigai or ikage or however they say it? It's a Japanese term, and they have like the 4 hoops or whatever. Do you know? But it's like something that gives value to the world, something that gives you money, something that gives you passion. And they all come together, and that is your purpose. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
do you ever hear that?
And it was funny just how having a go actually, because like with this, if we knew how much it was going to cost in advance, would we have done it? Probably not. If we knew everything that, it was literally ignorance is bliss. And like, if we knew what it would have taken, would we have done it? It's almost that blind sort of, it's almost a bit of ignorance really, was actually the blessing. And it's funny how quickly that, because we were sort of trying to do it and we actually give it a go, that we caught green lights that we might not have caught otherwise. And it's funny how things worked out to the T. Like we set an opening date, which was ambitious, which we probably shouldn't have done. We just thought one day, we'll do a video, we set a date, but then it put pressure on us, and then we actually ended up opening on that day. Otherwise, like Keezy's dad was in and he was like, you're not going to open that. Like it was so ambitious, but really it just happened, it came about financially the same. Like we probably got to exactly where we could get to, and it just sort of happened. It's funny how things just work for you when it happens like that. And I think like you say about sort of being open to things and like putting things in place that, because originally like even things like this, like a podcast, it wouldn't be something I would usually do. And like maybe 3-4 years ago, probably before France, before I sort of became a little bit more open to opportunity, I'd be like, I'm not going to do that. Because I think I'm from a small place, so then you almost have that sort of inbuilt in you. Like it's sort of that sort of place where you're always conscious of like, I don't want to sort of put myself above, or I don't want to make anyone else feel less, or I don't know, you just sort of reserved and you put yourself behind other people almost. But I think really you'd get 10, 20, 30 years down the line, you'd be like, why didn't I do that? And then you shut that opportunity down, which have led to a different opportunity, which would have led to a different one. You're like, actually, you just sort of consciously just not doing anything. And you get to a point where you're like, what have I actually done in my life? And like same, like we could have just been like, good idea, but that's it.
Leave it.
But once we said it and we put it out there, we had to do it. And and we got some hoodies printed. And after that, I just remember thinking like, we cannot not open.
Yeah.
Even if it was an ice bath and a wheelie bin or something, like it would have been
It had to happen then. you set the opening.
Yeah,
day.
and I think it's funny how you carry things with you, but like I think, and this is from like this is personally, and everyone's got their own sort of thing. But like if I say something, I've got to do it.
Yeah.
And like behavior is a funny thing, but like I think obviously it's learned. But I think I've taken that from my parents.
Yeah.
Like with my parents, like they work all the hours in the day. Like when we did kickboxing, for example, they would work overtime. And like thinking back now, like the sacrifice they made. Because I'm from a small town in Wales, 4.5 hours away, but every other weekend I'd be in London, Birmingham, we'd be going to Dublin, Spain, Germany, all over the world, just for me to do kickboxing. So then for me to be now saying something and not doing it, it would almost be disrespectful.
Yeah,
you know what
I mean?
Yeah. Which I think, it's funny how it carries through now into my behaviour now, but I think that's where that came from in terms of just like having to open.
Yeah.
Or like personally, that's my like grounding in terms of like anything I do now, which is something that you don't really realise when you're younger, but having observed it, it's like, oh, actually, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and when you say something, you feel like you have to do it then, don't you?
Yeah, I think it's just integrity, isn't it? And it's sort of how you carry yourself and like the way you are. And I think with everything.
The way you do anything is the way you do everything.
Yeah, and I think looking back, if someone's a real sort of person, then that's what they'd sort of do. And I just, it's funny how everything came about and sort of the collection of people that we've got doing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty cool now that we sat here and we're doing a podcast and
you're getting out of your comfort zone, doing something a little bit different.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's probably a challenge to myself to sort of keep doing things like that.
Yeah.
But I think you only sort of grow. Like you're probably the same. Like having started this, you were probably thinking, oh shit, like what are people going to say?
Yeah, oh, definitely, mate. And there's so much stuff that I can relate to what you're saying. Like, firstly, going back to like when you got this place built, you said you had no idea you're setting open today. It's amazing how God rewards people who move and make momentum. You know, you said people are coming in and helping you out that you never even thought possible, but it's amazing when you get rewarded for actually taking action. Off the back of that as well, like you said, like starting a podcast, like coming over here, me and you are very similar in the sense, like where I'm from, Balbriggan, there's no rugby league played. Like rugby league's unheard of until I started playing. And I just put myself out there and people know rugby league now as a result of me. And I don't mean to come across in an arrogant way, but genuinely people would not have ever heard of the sport. Like it's not played where I'm from. Do you know what I mean? And like coming from a small town, like you probably in some sense, like you feel a bit reserved and on the other sense, you feel like I need to go and make the most of my opportunity because of the fact that I'm from a small area. And like you said about your parents as well, like my mum raised me as a single mom, and like you feel that like you like you said, it's learned behaviour, and you see all the work that they're doing
it's
to
like
get
an
you to
obligation,
train.
isn't it?
It's an obligation, yeah. You see the work that they're doing to get you to train and like to get you to matches, to drive you here, there, and everywhere. And you go, you know what? Like I owe it to them to make it. But diving into that side of things, like with the kickboxing, like how did that go, and what level did you actually get to? Because you were like. You're a humble man, but you were an elite kickboxer, weren't you?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like it's a different life ago, almost like I do get embarrassed speaking about it. I don't know why. Again, whenever anyone mentions it, like I didn't even tell the keys. I don't tell anyone about it. It's always my parents who say it, because obviously they're just proud of it. But so we were competing at international level. I can feel myself getting nervous about it now, which is, I don't know why. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Well, we had a world champion team, and then had silver and bronze individually in a world championship. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Like when I go home and all the trophies on the wall, but it's not something I ever speak about now. I don't know, sort of a different person.
Different person, but it shaped you. It probably shaped you to the person that you are now.
Yeah, no, I think
the discipline and the work ethic and things like that.
The lessons you carry from that, they're unbeatable. Like, in terms of the way, the grounding you get in terms of discipline, you learn to trust yourself. Because like, it's funny how things carry over to my behaviour now, but like if I go out now, I don't really, obviously young boy, whatever, part of a group, but I don't really feel like I need to prove myself.
Yeah.
In any sense, really, like physically, like with rugby, like I don't really feel like I need to sort of physically like prove myself in any way. And I think that carries over into sort of like, I'm just relaxed.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, in terms of discipline, you learn to trust yourself. Like, you learn the value of hard work. and that like if you don't actually put the work in, then when it comes time to it, like you can't. If you do a weak thing, then when it comes time to be strong, you can't be.
Yeah.
So like actually, if you don't put the work in training, then really when it comes to competition, you're just going to get your head punched in.
Yeah.
So that's the harsh reality of that sort of arena and sport. It's
life, isn't it?
It's consequence, but then it carries into life.
Yeah, you don't rise to the occasion. You fall to the standards of your training, and you fall to the standards of what you do. If you're sloppy, like at home, you're going to be sloppy in life. You know what I mean? You're going to be sloppy in work. You know, it's like these things all come. If you put bad food into your body, you're gonna output bad stuff. Like our body's replenishing itself all the time, and the cells that are within our body are a result of the food that we're doing, the food that we're eating. Sorry, the sleep that we're having, the water that we're drinking. If you're filling yourself full of alcohol and fast food, like you're not going to be in the best shape possible, and that's just fact. Like, and I know you're big on this, aren't you? With things like whole foods and what you kind of feed yourself.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I think from the kickboxing thing, it carries into everything else. And it's funny how sort of you sort of end up as a person, about behaviour, and for the things I learned from that personally, and obviously Kurt as well, was the discipline. But then you almost learn that carries into across every aspect, diet, like sort of the way you think, and like if I say something, I've got to do it.
Yeah.
Like to a point where like my supplements at night when I get into bed, like last night, for example, and I was like, shit, I haven't taken that. It's very convenient not to. And no one else know if I don't. But then actually, I know. So then I almost think it like weakens me in a way. Do you know what I mean? If I don't do it, because I know. But then,
you know.
Because there's one of the best things I've ever listened to is a podcast by Teddy Atlas. He's a boxing trainer. He used to coach Mike Tyson. And he was like the sort of second in command after that Castamato. And when he was speaking, and he was on about sort of behaviour, and the way he speaks is fascinating. And it's so when it's time to do a strong thing and you've done a weak thing, how can you be strong? And it's like, actually, that's right. Like
100%.
And because he goes on about Mike Tyson and goes on about how actually he was only ever in 5 fights. He was physically more dominant than anyone else. So he would just run over people. But then whenever he came up against resistance, like you only actually know a person when they meet resistance. So like a doctor is only a doctor. Like he could ace school, could have A stars and everything. But then actually when he's opening a baby up, that's when it comes time to know he's a doctor. Or like a solicitor, when he's all prepped and he's got everything on, it looks nice and tidy, and he's in the court and everything gets thrown out and he's got to think on his feet. That's actually when you know he's got a solicitor.
Yeah.
And it's building that stack of evidence in terms of actually who am I? Am I sticking to what I say? Am I doing what I want to say? And am I doing them things? And then when it comes time to it, am I that person? Do you know what I mean? So I think I've always been like that. And it's almost quite extreme, really, to live your life like that. But I think almost it's a good thing. It's a blessing. And that's the lessons I've carried over from that. And I think that's maybe why me and Kurt are always on each other. But obviously it's for the benefit and it's long-term good.
Yeah, 100%. And the thing is, like, when you build that stack of undeniable truth that you are who you say you are, like, when you go out on the field and you cross that whitewash, or you go, I'm going to start a business from scratch, you believe that you can do it because of all the 10 years or 15 years of past experience that you have done what you said you're going to do. Do you know what I mean? Whereas if, like you said, how can you know you're strong? What was it? How? I love this.
How can you be strong when you've done weak things?
Yeah.
When
exactly.
it comes to becoming strong, you haven't really got that reserve. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you haven't got that.
When you meet that
proof.
resistance.
Yeah, when you meet that resistance, when you meet your first obstacle, you don't have that proof that you actually can do it. Because how can you? Because you let yourself be weak, or you cheat yourself every single night, or you go, oh, I'll have my creatine tomorrow. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's small things like that, which like I'll always laugh at myself when I'm doing stuff like that. But I don't know, I think it's important. And I going back to parents, like I've always seen my parents, like they'll be, like my dad will be up at 4:30 every morning. Do you know what I mean? He'll always do more than what he needs to do in work. We'll work like 16, 17-hour days, but he's doing it because it's the right thing to do in his mind. Do you know what I mean? So having that almost extreme part of it is like, that's solid. And I think when you speak to people, I think you know a solid person from a weak person.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I think that carries through into everything you do and the way you are, the way you speak, and the way you sort of deal with people. And I think maybe that's not something that's as common these days.
Yeah, it's a strong moral compass. It's the lines are getting blurred and they're getting grayer and grayer. And I feel like it's sometimes okay to be average. It's being accepted to be average, or maybe, you know what, I'd go as far as saying it's encouraged to be average. Do you know what I mean? It's encouraged to just do the thing, just go through the motions, just whatever it may be, get a good paying job, you know, don't stray too far to the left or to the right, you know, whereas no, like, people should be testing themselves, people should be getting uncomfortable, people should be trying to be the best version of them. And it isn't for everyone, it can't be for everyone, because if it was for everyone, then like society would probably collapse as well. But like, people should be trying to do things that scare the shit out of them. You know, like everyday people should be trying to do things that scare them, or that test them a bit out of their comfort zone, or to strengthen their moral compass, or be a better version of themselves. And nobody's perfect. Like, I'm far from perfect. Like, I am a complete work in progress, and I spend a lot of my life not having a clue with what I'm doing, and that is, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I didn't know how to start a podcast. I didn't know how to start an online coaching business. I did not know how to become a professional rugby player. I genuinely didn't. I had no guide. Like, all the normal paths when I was coming through were closed. The doors were shut, and I literally basically got a shovel and carved my own path. Do you know what I mean? But there's beauty in the madness, and there's beauty in going, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to do something that isn't the normal. You know, because the normal, the comfort, the conformity is to get that good paying job and to go through the motions, and to, you know, I might go on like a steady couple K once a week or whatever, and that's that. But there's not only is there no stimulation, but there's no growth in that. You're not gonna impact the world. You're not gonna impact the community. Like, when like I keep saying, like, when I see the Monday 6 a.m. run club snap from you are making an impact on people around you. Even the people from your town that you may not even know, just having you as a professional rugby player, as a role model, you and your brother, like, you don't know the impact that's rolling on to those people. But because you were willing to get uncomfortable, to come up north, to go to university up here, to literally forge your own path into it, because it wasn't straightforward for you. You didn't come through a mad Super League academy like you were. Like you said, you were in reserve grade. You were literally fighting to get in, to get the spot, to become the person who you believe you could be, and you had to believe it first. But that's the thing about life that I think is so exciting, is the fact that, like, if you're willing to roll the dice, and like I said earlier, God rewards momentum. If you're willing to make some momentum and stir the pot and get a little bit uncomfortable, you'll be rewarded. You will be rewarded. If you weren't willing to take action, and you left the idea of this place that we're sat in right now in the sauna, not only would I not be filming the podcast here, the four of you wouldn't be business partners, and the community around you wouldn't be impacted. And that is only the start. Like you said, 8 weeks open. It is only the start, and that there's beauty in that, and there's beauty in the madness, and there's beauty in your attitude that you have, that you're willing to just go, you know what, I'm not worried about the consequences. We'll worry about that later. Forget about that, and see that, like, insanely positive attitude, which seems so dim now in modern. I don't know if you think the same, but I feel like nowadays, to have like an actual positive outlook, or like believe the cup is genuinely half full, not just say it. There's few and far between nowadays of people like that, who are like, you know what, it is actually half full.
Yeah, and I think that was probably the main thing about when I was in the office, because it was just, I'm very sort of, to have an eternal optimism, everything's good. Probably a delusion. And then
I love it though.
Yeah. And then, like, the first thing you hear is a bit like, oh, the weather today. And it's like, oh.
Draining.
And then the next comment. But I think it does genuinely sort of weigh heavy. It's a gravity that genuinely sort of sucks a bit of life out. And I always joke with Keezy, and everyone, yeah, but I always say it's not rained a day since I left that job. But genuinely, and it was pissing them one day, and I said it, and then Keezy was like, well, but like, obviously
Keezy the realist, like
metaphorically. But I think there's a few things in what you said there. Like, I think that's probably the coolest bit, like the compound effect, like in terms of actually, we just had a go. Now we've got people coming through the door that, like, there was a one woman that hadn't done 5K for like probably like 2 years, I think it was.
Savage.
And actually, one of our first customers, our first member, so he's someone who's dealing with something health related, and speaking to him and the value he's got from this, that's the coolest conversation I've had. Because like, you're actually like, this is making a difference, which was like at the time a little bit surreal, because you don't really think it. You're sort of in this sort of just like, oh, this is good, this is funny, we're having a laugh, but then really there's a reality to it that we're helping people, and that was the coolest. That's the coolest part of it. And and like just the way that I think behavior generally is malleable. Like it's funny how little things just add and they compound and then they grow and they snowball into actually something that's measurable and then tangible, and then people get evidence from it and then they trust themselves a bit more. And then because like I know personally, like, and there's studies on this in schools, it's called like the Pygmalion effect. So the way people are spoken to, so the teacher's belief of a pupil's IQ is a determining factor in how they end up in school.
Yeah, I've heard of that. I've heard of that.
So that's in one of the Malcolm Gladwell books. And it's because of the way they think about the kid, and that's how they act. So then that's how they speak to the child. So then that's what the child believes of themselves. And then because they believe that of themselves, that's the behavior that they carry out. They think, oh, I'm a good student or I'm a bad student. And then that ends up in their grades, which then impacts their job, which then impacts their life, their profit potential and earning potential, and then where they actually end up. So then really, if we can be a positive change and we can sort of impact people in that way, then really, like hopefully we can sort of uplift people as well, which is the cool part. And there's like, obviously there's loads of different sayings about behavior, but it's like the elephant that has the baby elephant that has the rope on his leg and he can't move because he's tied to a fence. And at first, because he's small, he doesn't move because the rope pulls him back. Then he never actually learns that he could rip that rope off and just go and do whatever he wanted, but he's conditioned to just being stuck on the fence. And I think being able to sort of just cut that loose and just get people to have a go is probably the coolest part of this.
For sure. It's so special that you can, I suppose, get that community aspect and get people to get so far out of their comfort zone. Because within the comfort zone, there is no growth. There's no growth in the comfort zone. It reflects in everything in life. There is no growth in being comfortable. But to be able to actually have something that's touchable, for you four lads who've gone into business together, for you to have something that's touchable, like a recovery centre, a wellness space, and obviously you have the cafe, which is a growing spot as well, because like who doesn't love coffee? Shout out the coffee, shout out the flat white.
Yeah,
but
I'm not too great at that. It's a work in progress.
Work in progress on the latte art, you know what I mean? Yeah. Work in progress. But like to have something touchable that you go, I can literally see the impacts on people, that is absolutely insane. So obviously Heist is a wellness centre, and we're lucky to be filming here, but what does wellness actually mean to you?
I was looking this morning actually what wellness meant, because I knew we were going to ask this.
Researching.
So I was cheating. But wellness is sort of the daily behaviours for feeling well and thriving, not surviving. But then for me, it's probably just like the way you carry yourself, like a spirit. Do you know what I mean? Like the way you can walk a bit taller and get out and feel good and move towards something that you think is maybe aspirational. Do you know what I mean? I think that's sort of that's it for me. Like, because there's certain words which are a bit naff, like thriving, or do you know what I mean? They carry certain connotations. And sometimes it's a bit like, that's quite wishy-washy. But really, it's just feeling good, having a spirit, being able to sort of just think, fuck it, why not? In for a penny, in for a pound sort of thing. Yeah, so that's probably it for me.
I love it. I love it. And I'm I'm probably gonna actually call this taking the plunge, just because I reckon like we're in with the plunge pills and that. But diving into the space a little bit, saunas and ice baths. What do you find the benefit of it? Because you're mad for that aspect of it, and the recovery and optimization. And what does that look like in terms of a day for you? In terms of what are you doing on the daily to get the most out of your body? Saunas, ice baths, supplementation, anything else that you do? Like what does it look like for you in the day? Because I'm mad for it. Like I'm learning as well. Like I'm learning about it. I'm a nasal strip guy, before bed. But like this has been a work in progress, because like before. And I'm still working on it. Before, when I was a younger lad, like I was like the biggest bowl of carbonara right before bed, followed by like the biggest protein shake, belly out to here, trying to go to sleep, like tossing and turning all night after staring at my phone for full brightness for 4 hours. Like the absolute opposite of what you should probably be doing to like get. That's just for your sleep. But yeah, I feel like I've been a work in progress, and I've been learning about this space too. But what do you do in your daily life to help with your recovery, to help with getting the most out of your body so you can perform well and be the best version of you?
So it probably started when I was in France. So a little bit of a background. So Kurt, we'd gone swimming in France. They have really high concentration of chlorine, which I didn't know at the time. Kurt jumped. We were all swimming, whatever, came out. And then that night maybe we were just sort of just watching telly or something. And Kurt's come out and his face, he looked like an old man. And I was like, what's going on with him? It was literally, it didn't even look like him. And to the point where when normally you put a picture in a group chat, all the boys would just take the piss or whatever. But they were genuinely concerned, which probably shows how bad he looked.
I shouldn't laugh.
Yeah. No, literally, I don't even know what happened to him. Like, it looked horrible.
Thank God he doesn't look like that now. Like,
yeah, I don't know. But then, and from that then, and I was reading a little bit, so I just got a few books and things, and I started learning about sort of allergies and inflammation and sort of how it works in the body. And so in France, I didn't know at the time, I learned it after you have high concentrations of chlorine, but children who swim in swimming pools have a 7 times more chance of having allergies because how it impacts your hormones, and it's a hormone disruptor. So then I looked into hormones and things like that. So then I actually started like getting a bit of a schedule together then in terms of what I was doing. Because same as you, I was just doing the conventional carbs, protein shakes, all that standard stuff. But then I started looking into sort of ways to reduce inflammation, which is the ice baths. So then after France, I moved to Cumbria. Perfect spot, really. It's funny how things work out.
Yeah.
But we were by the lakes, so I'd start cold dipping every day.
Best ever, let's just say that as well. How good the natural water is the best ever.
No, it's good. But then started using sauna, and then sort of learned about like circadian rhythm, which is sort of the way your body works on a clock, regulated by temperature, light, heat. So then started putting them in place. So then I would dip in the morning and then sauna at night. And just the actual benefit I felt from that, like playing rugby, contact sport, your body's beaten up. And week to week, it's a bit of a grind in there, especially in the middle of the season. And I'd played a long time in France, so it was basically a season and a half almost. Well, probably two and a half seasons because I'd gone from the English season into the French into the English one.
Was that off the back of the World Cup as well?
Off the back, yeah.
So season, World Cup, France.
Yeah. So we had no time off. And then just the actual tangible benefits I felt in my body was sort of next level. And then sort of diving deeper into that, then you look at sort of general diet, so like the whole foods thing. So I would then take out any refined sort of highly processed things because then there's less of a burden on my body, which then I felt a good sort of benefit of. So now I've implemented that. Then I got an infrared light, which I use in the morning, particularly when it's sort of this time of year, a bit dark and dingy. Because then it sort of sets your body, your hormones off in the day, and then I use it at night then to sort of down-regulate the nervous system as well. So my day probably looks like I'll get up, jump in front of the red light, I'll then have some water, hydrate, electrolytes, or just some salt, and then sort of my food throughout the day is just whole foods. Supplement with like Vit D sometimes, maybe some creatine always, and then I'll take some fish oil sometimes, and then I'm just trying to think that magnesium for sleep, and then just generally try and eat well. And I add the sauna in and the cold plunge sort of when I feel necessary. Heat at night, so with the sauna for recovery, because with the circadian rhythm, it's probably a long-winded answer, but it actually drops your core body temperature, which is better because when you're warm, your body's just trying to cool you down, so it works in reverse almost. So then your body's cool at night, and when you're cooler, you sleep a lot deeper. So that's why a lot of people feel the benefit of the cold of the sauna.
Warm,
sorry.
yeah.
And then the same with the ice bath. I'll add that in on recovery days, just to sort of just get rid of inflammation, get the body feeling better. And that's probably just been like an evolution, like you say. Like initially, you start out, you're curious, and you just sort of do the conventional bodybuilder diet. Then you sort of move and you refine it. And I think I'm to a point now where I'm pretty happy with sort of how I look after my body. I'm pretty comfortable in terms of what I do, but I'm always looking to add more bits in. I'm always sort of curious in terms of like, there's probably more I could be doing that I'm not.
Yeah, and that's a constant growth as well. Trying to find that little 1% thing that's going to move the needle a little bit more. And when you get deeper, it's trying like your 0.01% changes. Then do you know what I mean? Because
absolutely.
If you take someone who's like just been on the couch the whole time, and you introduce a bit of exercise, a high protein diet, and a bit of clean eating, like it moves the needle so quickly.
Yeah,
do you know. But as you get to our level, like it's stacking those little wins, isn't it, to try to get a little bit more.
Yeah, and just how that carries over into like if you're feeling good, you can do more. Do you know what I mean? And then with this year, it's sort of just democratizing sort of the sports recovery thing, which can seem quite like elite or like reserved for people who train, but actually, generally, you just feel that much better. Like the impact we've had on people who just not like don't even play sports.
Yeah.
But because that physically carries over into sort of emotionally, like the way you think, the way you feel, and the way you act with other people. Do you know what I mean? And I think
Your whole mindset shifts.
yeah,
then,
there's
doesn't it?
tangible benefits to it for just everyone, which isn't reserved for just people who play sport.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, like if you're going in with a positive attitude, your body's feeling good, then you're able to work better, whatever job you do, and you feel better. You're a better partner, you're a better parent, you know, you're a better mate because you're more energized and you're feeling better about how you're going about your business. Do you know what I mean?
And it's like there's a concept called like the resilience well. So like if you're on a diet, you slip up on a diet when maybe not the first 3-4 days or 5 days or whatever. But when you're sort of midway through, if you've got a month, say you're midway through the month, and then you've had a bad day, convenience-wise, there's no food in the house, so someone's had an argument with you, you're like, oh, I'll just grab that. Whereas actually, if you're on top of things, if you're proactive in terms of looking after your health, then you don't really ever get to the point where the well's about that thin.
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of maybe the benefit of this in terms of how carrying into other people's lives and how people can sort of benefit from it. And obviously then, like you say, the way it carries into like personal life, relationships and everything, just a better person. Because I know at the end of the day, like I'm just tired, so I couldn't even be bothered arguing with anyone. I guess why I'm so relaxed all the time.
That's why you're so laid back, because like you're just wrecked all the time because you've been outputting so much.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you get many cravings? Like,
to be fair, I think no, I don't really. I'm just happy with what I just don't, because I've been doing it for so long. Like I probably went when I was doing kickboxing because it's like a weight cutting sport.
Yeah.
I got to the point where like I literally for 3 or 4 years, talking extreme again, it's probably a personality thing, but like I didn't eat anything I think it was bad for me. And this is at probably 15.
Which is mad.
Yeah.
Most 15-year-olds are like stuffing their face with crisps and Mackies. Like,
I don't know why and where that came from. Maybe it's because you've got a twin, you've always got someone there and you're competing and whatever. But yeah, in school, I remember just taking my Tupperwares of what I thought was good at the time, plain white rice, plain chicken or tuna, whatever.
the whole bodybuilder classic. I was
Just changing
saying,
it up. But that's all I would eat. Like I did not touch anything. Like I remember like my parents obviously still eat, like we'd go takeaways or whatever and I'd just be sat there with my rice, or we'd go to KFC or whatever. Me and Kurt just sat there. But I just got comfortable doing that. And it's funny how behavior just sort of gets stuck in a way, and that's stuck with me now. I'm probably a little bit more lenient on myself now because I know a bit better, a bit more educated about it. Like it's probably not a healthy thing overall to be so extreme like that. But yeah.
But it's built the foundation. And listen, I was literally the exact same. Like once I figured out like about a little bit about diet and things like that, like I became obsessive to the point like when I was about 14 or 15, I used to get €15 a week for my lunch money, so like €3 a day. And I used to say to my mom, can I just get the €15 on a Sunday and I'll do my meal prep, yeah? So at the time, initially it was rump steak pittas. So I'd be able to get with €15, I'd be able to afford like 2 cheap steaks, a pack of pittas, a bit of lettuce and cheese, and like honestly, come Friday in school, that rump steak pitta was the chewiest thing. It was like doing jaw workout trying to eat that, you know what I mean? So that was like the initial bit. And then like I moved into the chicken, rice and broccoli. So it was chicken, like I feel like every kid went through that stage. It's like a pinnacle moment. It's like that arc, you know what I mean? It's like that whatever they call the arc in the Marvel films, you know what I mean? It's that
I'm terrible at films. I'm very uneducated.
It's like the canon moment, you know what I mean? Like you're eating the chicken, rice and broccoli, and I'd take my whole lunch break as a kid, like stuffing my face with that, and then drinking water to get it down because it was that dry. The chicken was that dry, and then I'd have the instant coffee. This is where the caffeine addiction became in my locker in school, and I just pour that in my mouth and swish it around with a bit of water, and then you sort of like begin to develop. But I feel like that discipline for anyone who goes far, like they have that stage of discipline, especially when you're from like somewhere that's not necessarily like a sporting place or a rugby background. You know, you have to have that extra strong foundation of what you're doing. Like like when I was coming trying to make it as a rugby player. Like, there'd be days I'd be wrapped around the jack, sick as a dog. Or, like, I'd be on my 5th chicken, rice and broccoli meal, and people be looking at me like we're mad. Or we'd go to Tesco with my mates, and I used to get a litre of milk and a pack of blueberries. Everyone else would get like chocolate fingers or what, God knows what, you know. And I'd literally be there with a litre of whole milk and a pack of blueberries, and they're like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, no, but I think that obviously comes from somewhere. I think you take lessons from, like, if it's parents, the environment you're in, and for me, I think obviously it was parents as well. But then, yeah, where I was from, there'd always be like that. I don't know. I must have been like, I think it's just a lesson I've taken from like the people that were around then, and it was like negative archetypes of people who I didn't want to be.
Yeah.
Because like the standard person in the pub that used to be the best player ever, but then never made it because of X, Y, Z reason, probably drinking or whatever. And I never actually wanted to be that person, but I have vivid memories of being like, I don't want to be that bloke.
Yeah.
Because there's just a general sadness to it, and like you would get to a certain point in life where you would just be completely resentful. And it's obviously going back to something I touched on earlier, but then I always have that sort of strong, like, burning memory in my head. And me and my brother would always speak about it and be like, yeah, like, what? Like, why? Do you know what I mean? It's such a waste. And like, you would genuinely get to an age where you're just like, and you can understand, like, looking at that then, you can understand why people are resentful or why they're miserable. Or, and like, I never want to be that person. So then I think that's maybe where the extreme elements come into it. Like, I didn't drink at all through university. I'd go out, just drink water, soda water, or actually no, soda water lime. That was my drink.
People thinking it's vodka, lime and soda water. Like.
Yeah, exactly. And I always have to double take, and people wouldn't understand me anyway because the accent. So I'd be saying it 4 or 5 times to the person behind the bar. But I think that was just like, it's funny how you take lessons from certain things, and like having someone who you do want to be sometimes is a powerful thing. And I think maybe like in trying to do something, or like, I think having a fear almost. It's like the mouse that runs quickest away from this cat rather than towards the cheese.
Yes. That's what I was going to say. It's that analogy. When you have something, you have to be running towards something you want, but away from. They say that's when you're the most successful, you build the most momentum, when you're also running away from something you don't want to be. And like you said, I'm similar with my hometown. Like as much as and you love home, but there's people you can see who are in the boozer that you're run, like you don't want that to be your life, and and you want to run towards your goal, but away from the version of yourself that if you didn't do the 1% things, and you didn't not drink, and you didn't do these things, that's who you could be.
Oh yeah, and it's very easy to be doing that as well.
Yeah, and it's wasted potential then, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think obviously I've sort of been jumping around, but having that is pretty powerful in terms of like shaping actually who's the person that I want to be, and having them sort of negative role models almost. Obviously everyone has role models, but sometimes it's not really that tangible, whereas if you can see someone as a prime example and you're like, yeah, that's not me, that can't be me almost.
Yeah.
Because I still now, even when I drive home, I don't know, it's a bit like, not arrogant, I don't know, but it's a bit like, I want to be someone. And when I drive home, do you know what I mean? I don't know, it's like, because I'm from a small place, it's like, I remember driving first when I went to Leeds, and you drive in, it's not, Leeds isn't New York or anything, and you see the big buildings, but from Commissionbeck, like, them big buildings seem massive, and you just think, that's cool.
Yeah.
Like, I want to own one of them buildings. I want to do something. Like, I want to have a go. I want to make a mark. Like, I want to sort of put myself out there and actually do something.
Have your name into history.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, it sounds pretty, I don't know, what would you call it?
Ambitious.
Yeah, it's ambitious, but then sometimes I suppose it could be perceived as being a little bit like...
Arrogant.
Yeah.
It's not though. It's not. And
No.
I think that like, people need to take things with a grain of salt as well. Like, I feel like if you don't back yourself, who's going to back you? Do you know what I mean? You have to have that stupidly like outrageous goal that people tell you, no, you cannot do that. Do you know, like shoot for the stars. If you fall, you land on the clouds. Do you know what I mean? Like you have to aim high of yourself, because if you do not hold yourself to such a high standard or have such a big goal, like who's going to hold yourself to it? Who's going to do it for you? No one else is going to do it for you. Do you know what I mean? And if you're not willing to be the person who puts yourself out there, like no one else can hold your hand through the journey and get you to where you want to go. If you do have a big, stupidly scary goal that everyone thinks that you're absolutely mad, like who else is going to take you through that? Nobody.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, and I suppose how like where you're from and things, and how that impacts behaviour. And but I think I've got to a place now where I'm probably quite comfortable in terms of like being a little bit different. Like, to be fair, I've always been that in terms of like, I was never bothered about not drinking. I quite liked it in a weird way.
Do you still not drink?
Very, very rare. I mean, yeah, hardly ever. I mean, I don't. It's not something I think about. It's not something I feel obliged to do. Really, at the end of the season, that's it. Because I feel like I've earned it.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know. It's obviously extreme again, but that's probably carries through everything. Really, I just think if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it properly. I'm going to have a go and
Red hot crack.
Yeah, red hot crack at it. Because one of my old coaches said, "You're a man of extremes." Because like, anytime we'd have any time off, I'd always get injured in the time off because I'd overtrain. Like,
and I don't tend to get injured, but I always overtrain. Like I cooked my Christmas break. I came in feeling that bad after Christmas break. Like we came in, we did testing. Like my Bronco time got worse because I just I got so much head noise. I trained every single day. Like I literally trained the house down. Like I'd have a few beers with my friends over back home on Christmas. I'd train the house down. Then like the next day, like everyone else is dying, and I'm in the gym sauna. Like because up there, like it's extreme, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's relatable. Though. I relate to it. Some people think what was wrong.
Yeah, it's like the devil on the shoulder almost. Isn't it? Like it's just but it's obviously a good thing and it's a benefit, and overall, obviously, it served me very well. But yeah, it's a tough one to shake.
It is for sure. But like I relate to that so much. I relate to the extremity. Like I think I only really had like my first proper drink up when I came to Huddersfield. My whole life, like coming through secondary school in Ireland. Do you know how like in Ireland people like drink? People go on sessions. You know, you know what I mean? Like people go on sessions, like all my mates were drinking in the field, and I would be like you said, I drink water. I didn't drink. I don't drink. I literally say I don't drink. I remember like just before I came to Huddersfield, I might have had like 1 or 2 beers, maybe 1 or 2 Guinness, but like I had never been like drunk.
It's funny though. I think it's obviously the story you tell yourself about who you are, and obviously when you're younger, you just think you're not really anyone. Do you know what I mean? You've not really done anything, but you almost tell yourself, "Oh, I'm gonna play rugby. I'm the rugby player, or I'm the kickboxer." For when I was younger, and that was the benefit of having that and having something tangible to sort of like anchor me.
Yeah, for sure.
Because the age of where everyone was drinking, I was busy doing kickboxing. So then that's why I never got into it.
That's a blessing. That's a blessing
which is the ultimate blessing. But like, I don't know. It's funny, really, because like I've got that side of me, which is sort of extreme. But then, really, day to day, I'm not really.
You're laid back.
Yeah, I'm just sort of laid back. Probably too laid back. Like my grandma would always say, like I'm horizontal. But like it's always been like that. Like from a young age, like I used to miss my school bus every morning. Like every morning, I'd have to run 2 stops because it would go around, come back, and up a hill, and I'd always be sprinting up the hill, which is probably good, really, because I mean, get them hill sprinting in the morning, and I'd be selling in school as well, so I have the big rucksack on with cans just clanging about. But yeah, I don't know. It's funny how behaviour sort of shapes, and like day to day, blasé. Like I've just not really got a care in the world, but then I've obviously got that other side.
You have the other side. It's a good way to be. And it's like we talked about before. Like if that version of yourself, if you believe that you're that person, and then you don't do the thing, you're lying to yourself. Do you know what I mean? Like you said to me about starting this podcast, like what's ahead, and I was like, yeah, but I can't really. I felt like I couldn't be the person who I say I am. Like when I say you have to get uncomfortable, you have to do the thing that. Like you have to be the person who does what they say. If not, like you're not the person who you say you are. And that was me as a young lad. Like when I wasn't drinking, or I was drinking milk and eating blueberries. It's like I can't be the person who has no contract, no academy, saying I'm going to be a pro rugby player and downing 10 cans of Bulmers in the field every Saturday. do you know what I mean? Like I couldn't be that person.
That's the thing. I think the story you tell yourself, and behaviour can be anything. Like I could do whatever I want now. I think we have an illusion that. Like we've got some sort of control on something, but really, I could just go eat pizza and just do that. Then really, that's not really the person I am. That's not the story I tell myself of who I am, which is the anchor.
Yeah.
And like, there's a good saying from that Teddy Atlas actually: you can't corrupt your conscience without any cost. So I think if you were to drink the Bulmers and things, actually, because you tell yourself a story of someone who you want to be, you're not being that person. Do you know what I mean? So then actually, it would come at a cost to yourself and just generally your own sort of belief in yourself, which is something. This is a sort of a saying I really like, and which I tell myself when I'm not getting the creatine or the magnesium at night, which is bizarre, but yeah, it's just funny. I think generally behaviour is just fascinating because I could, or you could be anyone who you want to be, but you end up being this sort of person, and just the way everything's come about, and like the story you said about like looking back about from a small town in Wales, end up here building this, and it's like actually that's a consequence of the things I've told myself.
And a result of every little thing that happened to you along the way.
And like
shaped you to be who you are.
Yeah, and that compound effect of like actually this behavior led into this, and then this led into this, and then when you think about it, it's like shit. Like
shit, baby.
Yeah, exactly, shit. But then like how things just compound and how things add up and end up being what they are. But actually being able to consciously do that and make a decision on what sort of trajectory you want to travel on is something that's actually pretty important. So yeah, no, it's something I think about all the time, because like on the side as well, I work with children in care, and you see sort of how their behaviours aren't conscious whatsoever, but then they almost like get themselves into a certain place because the stories they tell themselves, the things they've seen, and they almost confine themselves to a certain way of being, and like the story, because of the story they tell themselves. And like that's how they behave, that's how people treat them, and as a consequence, that's how you end up. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, which I find fascinating, because really, like they're just kids, but actually they confine themselves to a certain way of life, which is sad. Which is sad, really. But I think it's something that everyone can do. And personally, when I was in the office, that's something I was doing, and it didn't last a long time because I was probably fortunate of
self-awareness.
Yeah, and the gifts of things that I'd seen previous. But then, really, I could have fell into that trap, and I'd probably be 5 years down the line still staying the same thing, which really would have been a curse. Yeah, which is it's a difficult one, but it's fascinating really when I think, and it's all from reading, like understanding things and how things happen and why. But actually, like I could have worked out a lot differently.
Connor Davies, that was a serious message. Thank you, my man.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.